Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It's me, Only Run Very Noob, and of course, bringing you Bravo gameplay as usual. Today we're playing against Dromai. I believe this is a matchup that's gotten a lot tougher since they got some new cards. And I think a lot of Bravo players kind of have some questions on how they should play the matchup. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus, just some stuff I had to deal with, unexpected. And this game was recorded after Bright Lights, so it should have the new cards, but it was recorded like before I took the hiatus, so I'm not even like exactly sure what how I play this matchup in this recording. So this should be an interesting one for me to commentate. Of course, my sideboard remains pretty standard against Dromai. I play all my blues, I play all my red poppers, and the only red poppers or red non-poppers that I play are Zealous Belting and Pummel. Zealous Belting being like really good, and Pummel just kind of being what I have. Like, you could play Sigil as it's a non-popper that you never really have to pitch. Like, sometimes Pummel can get stuck in your hand if you have like full tempo and you have like a 3 red hand or something. But Sigil you can always just play and move on. You might even want like Sink Below against the builds that play like Snatch and Dust Up and Nourishing Emptiness and all that, but I've never really messed around with that. And I choose Pummel just because it allows me to be aggressive if I have tempo. And a lot of times I just use it to block 2 on an attack that doesn't have Phantasm. It's also a red that's pretty good in Arsenal. So if I have an open Arsenal and I end my turn with a Pummel, I can just put it in Arsenal and sort of wait for something to happen. Of course, when you Arsenal it, you give away the ability to just block 2, and you sort of have to find a spot to play it, which can be a little annoying. You generally don't want to crown it away because it's just like shuffling a non-popper back into your second cycle, which against Dromai can definitely be pretty dodgy. Of course, you can't avoid it completely. You're going to be pitching some non-poppers, but you really want to minimize that to the best of your ability. I do go Norin Boots. I think that's pretty standard. I think I saw someone on a Battle Hardened stream just kind of go like full aggro and use Civic Steps in the matchup, but that just seems kind of wild to me. See a very interesting boots with silent stilettos here. Not sure what they're thinking. Maybe they just like mis-equipped. Of course, you see Crown of Dominion these days because they have the Tome. Ghostly Touch and Flamescale Furnace should also be very common. If you don't see Ghostly Touch, a lot of times you can just fatigue your opponent. You got to play really fast though, because if they're like still on 3 Remembrance, it can be a long game that goes to time. But if they don't have Ghostly Touch, I feel like Fatigue is like a very easy strategy to employ that's very effective. Well, let's look at our hand here. Yes, I'm on the play, so I get to go first. I think just make a Surge and dominate Spinal Crush is like pretty good here. We do have to pitch a non-popper, but we get to pitch it in between 2 poppers, which is what you generally want to do with your non-poppers and how you pitch them. You really don't want to have a hand at the end of the game that has like 3 non-poppers in it. So if you sort of weave them in, you can kind of avoid that, because you can always just like have popper, non-popper, popper, non-popper, and you'll have like 2 poppers in your hand if you do that. It looks like I just pitch a popper to make a Surge and then pass the turn. I think dominating Spinal here is good. I'm not really sure what I'm thinking. Maybe I didn't want to pitch the non-popper, but kind of an interesting choice for me. Arsenaling the Starstruck, which I think is also kind of an interesting choice. Like, it's harder to play the Starstruck than the Spinal Crush, but maybe I'm hoping to keep 2 blues here. just to throw Spinal Crush like undominated. They just pitched 2 reds to pop their gold. Can't really tell what this Invoke is up here, but another one's Flame Call Awakening. They play the Tome, so they get to draw 2, and then they're going to pitch 2 and have 2 floating with 4 Ash, which is quite a lot of Ash. But they just have a lot of Ash against us. Like, they generally are using like Flamescale Furnace a lot and just kind of like pitching, set up a second cycle, and not like utilizing a ton of their Ash. So I find that my Dromai opponents usually have like plenty of Ash. And they just play Chromai and Miragai into us, which is definitely a scary combo, but not really that scary if they don't have a board behind it to like threaten a bunch of damage. So I'm going to be able to use the non-popper as a block here. And my guess would be they pass and don't attack with Miragai. If they attack with Miragai, we get to just pop it and then attack the Chromai. Kind of interesting. I would have expected them to pitch the Miragai and Chromai for late over like the E-Strike Sigil, because they could have pitched those 2 cards to the Tome and then just like E-Strike for 5 draw card us or something. And then maybe when they draw them in conjunction later, they have a board that they can really utilize. Opponent seems to be playing a little slow. I guess they're just deciding how to stack all the 4 of those cards in their pitch. So yeah, here we just hammer away Miragai. We can't let that thing live. We are going to pitch the Unmovable because we know we have a popper on bottom. We can weave the Unmovable in between and keep a popper in hand on the off chance that we just draw like 3 non-poppers here. We're going to want to keep a popper there. We hope they attack us with something we can block at the showtime. Like just any kind of attack, really. They just play an Uvia. It looks like they're using up their Ash here. They're probably going to use both their Ash to make an Ashwing. And we take it back, and they have Passing Mirage in hand. Oh, so maybe they're going to like play the Uvia. Oh, they're pitch stacking a Miragai and a Chromai, or like anyway on the bottom there. So they're just going to play an Uvia, and I imagine just play Passing Mirage and pass. They can attack with Dromai if they want. Of course, we're just going to pop it. That's one of the scarier dragons that they can have on board. When given an opportunity to pop it, you usually will. And they play Passing Mirage, which I'm going to destroy. And because we have a bunch of extra cards, we can make a Surge. I believe I'll pitch the showtime, but not 100% sure here. Maybe I want to have more poppers and I'll be a little risky here, hoping to get some block value out of the showtime. No, I just weave it in between the popper there, which I think is perfectly reasonable for the reasons I stated before. If you want to get greedy and you really don't want that many non-poppers in your second cycle, though, you can keep it in your hand and just try to look to block like a random Ravenous Rabble or what is it? Billowing Mirage or whatever the 1-for-3 make an Ashwing cards are. They have a few attacks that don't have Phantasm that you're happy to block with. But we have a full hand of poppers. Still have that Starstruck in Arsenal. They just attack with Ashwing. They make Kyloria and just attack with Ashwing. I think I'm going to pop this Ashwing, but which one are we going to pop with? The Command and Conquer, like which one of these 4 cards? So automatically I don't want to block, I don't want to pop with the blues because I want to keep 2 of the blues plus the Surge to throw Crippling Crush or Starstruck. So probably just going to block with Command and Conquer here. We still have 3 pummels in our deck though. So there is maybe a chance we pop with Crippling Crush, throw Starstruck, and Arsenal Command and Conquer, sort of waiting for our pummel, but I don't think that's as good. I think I just like blocking with Command and Conquer and then throwing Crippling Crush. I think Crippling Crush is just better on its own than a Command and Conquer. Like, sure, we're going to draw pummel eventually, but we don't really want to be priced into needing to use our pummel that way. And we can just throw Crippling Crush here. Or Starstruck, depending. Because there's no threat that they have on board that we really need to attack into here. They Remembrance, and they get the only 3 actions back they can, which are all pretty good. Oh no, I guess... sorry, I forgot Tome is in action too, so they got the Tome back instead of the Passing Mirage. It looks like I'm throwing Starstruck here instead of Crippling Crush, which is quite interesting. I think Crippling Crush is not only just like a better effect, it's harder to stop. Maybe my thought process is I want to dominate Crippling Crush more than I want to dominate Starstruck. And they're both probably going to cost 3 cards here, although they could block with Furnace. Ooh, it even takes them 4 cards because they have Oasis Respite and they got to pay for it. They don't even get to gain the life, I don't think, because we were both just at 40 still. And I get to Arsenal Crippling Crush, and they're probably not going to be able to do anything on their turn. Their Arsenal could be like a 0-drop Dragon or a Sigil, which would turn on Go Again for their whole board. But odds are it's like a Sink Below or something. Sink Below, Favor Scene, although maybe they wouldn't have used their Oasis there. Oh, it's Passing Mirage. Did I know that was Passing Mirage? Maybe I did know that was Passing Mirage. Oh, this is pretty cool. So we have Imposing Visage and 2 blues, and we have to destroy the Passing Mirage. We can't just let that thing stick around. At least not with our opponent at 40. Like maybe if they were like at 5, we could just dominate Crippling here and try to get them. But I have Imposing Visage, so I can actually clear 2 non-poppers out of my deck by tutoring up a Showtime, and then that'll get rid of Imposing Visage in Showtime. And I get to go get a popper, which I get to pitch alongside the popper and the Visage. I could even like make a Surge and then just hammer the Passing Mirage. So yeah, I can just go tutor up like a Buckling Blow blue or something. That's normally what I pick because I feel like it's the one I want to draw the least. Make a Surge because I have the extra red, and then just hammer down the Passing Mirage. So even though we had 5 cards and we just had to kill Passing Mirage, we actually got a little bit of value there. We get an extra card next turn, and we got to thin our deck of 2 non-poppers. Of course, it messes up our stack. So we were stacking like popper, non-popper, popper, non-popper for, I don't know, 5 turns. But if the density of poppers is high enough, I feel pretty comfortable doing that anyway. So our opponent makes a Yendurai and then just attacks with Ashwing. We're going to use this opportunity to pop it with Phantasm, or pop it with, you know, a 6-power attack, and then see what we draw off Showtime. We have 3 blues, so we can dominate the Crippling Crush and Arsenal, but hopefully we draw like a popper off the top, so I don't have to pitch 2 of these non-poppers and like a sequence of 3. Although we just pitched 2 poppers and a non-popper, so we could still like go popper non-popper, popper, non-popper, and it'll still be like alternating. Um, so once we hit that second cycle, which will come later now that we shuffled, it will still provide 2 poppers in our hand at least. And they pitched Tomultai, which is kind of nice. They're not going to get that till later, although I guess they can shuffle with Flamecall Awakening, so you got to be mindful of that. Is if they shuffle, the Tomultai could come back around a lot quicker than we might otherwise have thought. Oh, we do draw a popper, but I don't think I want to pitch that one. I think I want to just keep it around. Seeing as how it's Crippling Crush, and we're going to have a Dominated Crippling Crush this turn. I guess I just end up playing the one in hand. I don't think it matters too much. They don't know about the one in Arsenal. It's not like we roused the Ancients and revealed it or something. Had we done that, we would definitely want to play the one they know about, just to cut off as much information from our opponent as possible. They just pass, which always makes me think they have D-React in hand and Arsenal. But they end up just taking 11 here and discarding 2 cards. That's got to be pretty good news for our other Crippling Crush and Arsenal here. Unfortunately, we don't draw a hand that can dominate the Crippling Crush. We barely have a hand that could play it. But we do have Zealous Belting, so we can just pop with the red Buckling Blow and then pitch Starstruck to play Zealous Belting for 5 go again, and then hammer for 6. But they don't offer us a Phantasm attack. They just attack with Dust Up here. We could block with Equipment. It has an on-hit effect that makes a Ashwing, or it makes an Ash and an Ashwing. They only have 1 Ash, so it's possible that like we'd want to stop that. But I don't think that on-hit effect is like too detrimental for us here. I wish this popper was blue so I could just like block with the blue non-popper and move on. But I think I still am going to block with the red Buckling Blow so that I can have a Zealous Belting turn. The Zealous Belting and the hammer are going to go to his face. I don't really feel like I need to clear any of these dragons. It doesn't seem like I'm on any sort of fatigue plan. Seeing as how they've already taken 11 damage just to the face, I think I kind of want to stay aggressive. We've already seen 1 Remembrance, so we can expect more. Most Dromais are playing like a bunch of Remembrances. I don't really know why they play a bunch of Remembrances. Maybe it's because a lot of Bravos are trying to fatigue them, which I think is a reasonable plan, but it's not one I favor. Oh, they undid their last action. Not too sure why, because they're making the same exact play. Maybe they wanted to give it go again and they just realized they don't have Snapdragon Scalers. There is a chance if we wanted to have like a fatigue backup plan that we would hammer their Uvia for 6, but they only have 1 Ash, so they might not even be utilizing their Uvia that well anyway at this point. And I think just getting cards out of their hand or lowering their life total is what I aim to be doing here. If we're on a kind of a race plan, it makes our pummels way better too. That's another thing to think about. Is if you sideboard pummels over like Sink Belows, being aggressive just makes those cards better. Not only does being aggressive allow you to keep bigger hands with pummel, but it actually becomes like a win condition if you're actively threatening their life total. And just 3 card 11 is fine. Like, it's only 1 point off of having each card be worth 4, like a 3 card 12, right? And if each card's worth 4, that's definitely where you want to be in CC. They just end up blocking it with 2 cards. They use a sink below, which would lead me to believe they have another sink below that they want to put in Arsenal. Because I think most Dromais like to be safe and just sort of have defense reaction in Arsenal so they're not getting like dominated crippling crush. We draw a 3 red hand here, which is kind of sucks. We do have that pummel we talked about here. We can't play the crippling crush in Arsenal. We could get greedy and like use crown trying to find a blue, but it's like not even that good for us here. It would allow us to like play crippling crush and then Arsenal either pummel or crippling crush here, because we would probably crown away the spinal crush looking for a blue. But it seems a little greedy and it's like not even a sure thing, and it's definitely not the kind of play I like to do. Yeah, I don't know. I think just popping with spinal and then hammering for make a surge and hammer for 6, over pitching to just get rid of all these cards. But it's not like a great hand. This turn cycle is a little awkward. But getting the Kylori off the field defensively is good. That's so unfortunate. They just play Remembrance. I think they should definitely just Arsenal the Remembrance and wait. Because if they don't have an Arsenal and we have 3 blues here and we just dominate Crippling Crush, we can just do that pretty easily knowing they don't have an Arsenal. And they can just play the Remembrance whenever they want. They don't have to play it right now. So definitely something to keep in mind. If you play Instants in your deck, like if you have Sigil in your deck, don't just gain 3 life and leave an empty Arsenal. Just put it in Arsenal. Not only will your opponent all of a sudden have to play around potential cards you could have in your Arsenal, it protects you from like Codex, and it just gives your opponent less information until the point where you want to utilize the card. Which again, if it's an instant, you can utilize it whenever. You're not losing any sort of tempo or value by playing it instead of arsenaling it. So here I don't overpitch the pummel, I just leave it in my hand. Not entirely sure if I love that, although having those 2 non-poppers pitched is pretty sketch, so maybe it's like fine to do this. It just seems a little risky because it could get stuck in my hand. I could draw another red heavy hand, and having the red in my hand be pummel and not a popper makes it a lot harder for me to dominate this crippling crush, right? Because even if I draw 3 blues, I'm not going to be able to pop and then play it with dominate, although I could pop and play it with like the surge and 2 blues and then arsenal to pummel. A lot to think about in this game. Don't let it sort of scare you into like playing or thinking about your lines, but yeah, there's just definitely a lot of stuff to think about in this game that might not be as obvious on first glance. I haven't ever played a card game that's so rewarding to like play and get better at. A lot of card games, like if you ever played like Hearthstone, it's just kind of like you learn how you're supposed to mulligan, and then you just like hope to curve out, kind of cross your fingers and hope to curve out. A lot of times not a ton of decisions there. Same thing with magic. Is sort of like, okay, cool. I have like 3 lands and 4 spells. I guess I'm keeping this hand. Um, Hope my draws are good enough, right? Where in Flesh and Blood, like, and I'm sure there's like a lot of decisions to be made in those other games, but they're kind of clouded by the fact that luck can just like play such a huge part. And I feel like Flesh and Blood mitigates the luck and ups the complexity as well, through the pitch system and just sort of how the matchups play out. Just a really, really good, really fun game. Really rewarding to play. They play a Chromite and attack with it, and we're definitely just popping that sucker. But now we have to think. He can attack us for 6 total. You know, I don't do this a lot. Like, you'll see me pop Ashwings a bunch, and I feel like a lot of Bravos will, like, leave the Ashwings and then pop the later dragons. But I just like to conserve my life. But I feel like here, there's a chance I just take 6. I take both the Ashwings, the Uvia, and the Yindarai, so I can throw the Crippling Crush and Arsenal the Pummel. You can get punished hard for this, though. If they have like Passing Mirage or Snatch or something, you can get punished really hard. Oh, it looks like I'm just popping it. Which means my pitch stack is going to be a little messed up here because I imagine I just make a Surge and hammer for 4. And there's not even like a good dragon for me to hammer down, so I just kind of like hammer their face. Like if my hammer was for 6, I'd probably kill Uvia or Yindarai here. Oh, he has 2 Yindarai, so I would have taken 9 there. Yeah, that's why I didn't do that. If you only had 1 Yindarai, I think that would have been fine to take 6, but taking 9's a lot. Pitch stack is not good. Not good. They play a Tome, which sort of lets them fix their hand a little bit. All while kind of being like a red that they play to give everything go again, but then also act like as a blue by giving them 2 resources. It's a very good card. But they do have to not play like a helmet that blocks to use it, which I'm not sure. Like, Tome's very good, but I feel like armor is very good too, especially into us. They just play a Time Snap Potion and a Remembrance. Again, if they had Remembrance and Arsenal, it'd be a lot tougher of a decision for us. But if they don't have an Arsenal, we're just going to dominate this Crippling Crush. We can pitch a yellow and 2 blues thanks to having a Surge already, and then we can like Arsenal the red Buckling Blow. So we're definitely just going to like dominate Crippling Crush here. And make them have an Oasis Respite, I guess. We also get to pitch a bunch of poppers after the last turn where we had to pitch 2 non-poppers, which is something you can be happy about. Hopefully there's not a 4-card clump with 3 non-poppers there, but if there is, there is. It looks like our opponent's just taking 11 again. Oh no, they're going to take 7 using a defense reaction, but still discarding the whole hand and going down to 16. Well, not discarding their whole hand, but a 1-card hand has much fewer options than even a 2-card hand. Ooh, they get to keep their 0-drop though. A little lucky. But we get to just pop and then have a Zealous Belting turn, which we're perfectly fine with. We could even like Zealous Belting into the Buckling Blow for a couple extra aggressive points. It cost us a Surge, but I honestly think that's fine. Just like taking the points where you have them with the life totals where they are seems pretty good to me. Yeah, because they're at 11 and they can't just take 8 here. Not that they would, because they probably don't want it to crush and get like even more value. So we're probably going to get like a card in the Flamescale Furnace or 2 cards. And I think we're just like in a really good spot once that happens. We've played like 2 Zealous Beltings. We haven't played any Rouses. We still have a Crippling Crush left in the deck, although I think I pitched it earlier. So it's not like necessarily coming back soon. They just full block there for 8. Not entirely sure why they would do that. Another kind of awkward one here. Let's play Ravenous Rabble. I think I probably just block with the blue buckle. I could block with a pummel though. Yeah, maybe blocking with pummel is better because I can block with pummel, then pop with buckling blow, and then still hammer for 4 with the blue I have left, and then arsenal the last pummel. Of course, Crown of Providence gives you a lot more options if you want to be a little greedy here. And it looks like I do want to be greedy here because they're at 11. So we're gonna like get rid of a pummel, and then now this still allows us to pop with our 1 popper and send a hammer for 10. Of course, because we're gonna pummel it. Yeah, I actually don't hate that crown there. They're at low enough life that us trying to kill them before we hit our pitch stack is probably going to be good. Because our pitch stack's messed up. Like, we just pitched 2 non-poppers and then we crowned a pummel to the bottom. And that's not going to be where we want to be at, especially if we're going face and like letting them build a board. So I think I just kind of want to kill them as soon as possible here. Maybe I don't pummel this. Maybe I save a pummel for an attack to like try to get the discard. But I think that's not... Like, it's much safer to just pummel and keep a clear arsenal in case we draw like a heavy blue or a heavy red hand later that we don't get to use, and then we could arsenal a different card. They pitch Dromai to play Mirror Guy. I feel like they might have wanted to play Dromai. Oh, they do. So we can't pop this, so I think we just take the 3 and then pop the next thing, and then we could dominate a Spinal Crush. Oh yeah, and see, they play Passing Mirage, so we know they don't have an arsenal, so... Yeah, and I'm pretty sure we can still pop this because this is not the first dragon attack or the first illusionist attack this turn. I don't think it's like Magic where when you play a Passing Mirage it doesn't remember the past. I think it still remembers. Where in Magic it's like a new object doesn't remember moves before it. I guess I don't really need to talk about Magic though. But yeah, and since they don't have an arsenal, we just dominate the Spinal Crush, and barring Oasis Respite, they're just dead. They do have kind of a nasty board, though, so if they somehow live through this, there's a chance they could claw back with a Dromai, a Passing Mirage, and a Mirror Guy. But we do have a lot of armor. We have 28 life, so it's probably going to be pretty difficult for them. They block 5, and they end up still taking 4 here. And that's the game. Yeah, so hopefully that was a fun one. Show off a little bit of the new Dromai cards. I know this is a matchup a lot of people in various like Bravo Discords ask about a lot. They're not like 100% sure what strategy they should employ. I definitely like being aggressive. I've tried being super defensive and fatiguey, and I think that strategy is actually really good and works quite well. Your main enemy with that strategy is the clock, and really good Dromais, I think, can still maneuver themselves into attacking you with a Ghostly Touch twice, with a time snap potion and with like a mage master boots or something. Or what's the other one they play, like time skippers you see a lot. Silent stilettos though, they might have misclicked, and I think that prevents them from attacking with ghostly touch like a second time. I don't think they play 2 time snap potions. But yeah, I think both strategies can work. It's just the aggressive strategy might have a higher fail rate. Like if you brick on the aggressive strategy in like a bad spot, sometimes it can spell your doom. But it also doesn't go to time, and like ultimately I think it might have a very similar win rate, even though when you lose with the aggressive strategy it generally feels worse because you drew like a 4 red hand, or you drew like a 4 blue hand when you have tempo, or just something like that kind of feels bad when you brick. Where the fatigue plan probably how it loses is the Dromai player playing very, very well, and attacking you with a ghostly touch that's like at 14 or 15 twice in a game, and just kind of like stealing one away. Or time gets called and you get a draw, which always feels bad. So hopefully we learned a little bit from this game, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for coming by.